what if Gear 5 is not Luffy's final form? Because in Elbaf, Oda may have just given us a very strange hint through Scopper Gaban. When Gaban sees Luffy using Gear 5, he doesn't call it Nika. He doesn't call it his awakening. He calls it his white form. And that is a very specific choice of words, because if Gear 5 is simply Nika's final transformation, why describe it by its color at all? Unless there is another form. And I think Luffy's final power-up could be the exact opposite of the Nika we know right now, a version of Gear 5 dominated by Haki, a black form. And no, I don't mean an evil Luffy or some corrupted Dark Nika. I think this could actually be about Luffy finally gaining complete control over Nika, because Gear 5 still feels unfinished. Luffy awakened it in the middle of his fight with Kaido. He didn't train for it, he didn't understand what was happening, and even now Luffy barely seems interested in the true identity of his devil fruit. That matters because this is a mythical zone, the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika, and zone fruits are different. They have transformations, they have awakenings, and we know their nature can affect the user. That could explain one of the strangest things about Gear 5. Whenever Luffy enters this form, his personality changes. He becomes even more chaotic than usual. He laughs constantly, plays around during serious fights, and sometimes seems almost unable to stop enjoying himself. Luffy has always been goofy, but there is a major difference between normal Luffy and Gear 5 Luffy. Normal Luffy can instantly become serious. Gear 5 almost seems to pull him back toward laughter. So what if Luffy has awakened Nika's power without completely mastering Nika's influence? That would make Gaban extremely important. This is a man who sailed with Roger all the way to Laugh Tale. He knows the true history. He knows what Roger discovered. And there is a very good chance he knows far more about Joy Boy and Nika than Luffy does. So when someone like Gaban casually calls Gear 5 the white form, I think we should pay attention. Because there is another problem. Luffy's fruit is a zone, but what exactly are his zone transformations? With Kaido, it is obvious. Human form, hybrid form, full dragon. But Nika is humanoid, which makes Luffy's transformations much harder to identify. Gear 5 could be the complete Nika transformation, but Oda has never clearly told us that. And that leaves open the possibility that the form we know right now is only one stage of the fruit. Maybe the white form is the raw awakened state, and Luffy still has to create the perfected version himself. Because this is exactly how Luffy has always developed. Gear 2 came from Luffy. Gear 3 came from Luffy. Gear 4 came from Luffy combining his devil fruit with Haki. But Gear 5 is completely different. Luffy didn't create it, the fruit awakened. And I think that distinction is important. Gear 5 is Nika's transformation. Luffy's final form could be what happens when he finally makes that transformation his own. And the missing ingredient is obvious: Haki. Kaido already gave us one of the biggest clues in the entire series when he explained that devil fruit abilities are not enough to conquer the world. Roger had no devil fruit. His Haki took him to the top. And look at Luffy's progression. Against Katakuri, he improved his observation Haki. In Wano, he learned advanced armament. Against Kaido, he learned to code his attacks with Conqueror's Haki. So what is left? Combining everything. We have already seen Luffy do this once. Gear 4 was created by mixing his rubber body with armament Haki. That is why the form looks completely different. His body becomes covered in black Haki while still maintaining its elasticity. Now imagine the same concept applied to Gear 5. Gear 5 is almost completely white. White hair, white clothes, white clouds. Haki is represented by the exact opposite: black coating and black lightning. That visual contrast is almost too perfect. The white form could represent the awakened devil fruit. The black form could represent Luffy combining that awakening with the full power of his Haki. And that would make this much more interesting than Gear 6, because Luffy doesn't need another completely new ability. He needs mastery. Right now, Gear 5 gives Luffy absurd freedom, but it also makes him reckless and drains an enormous amount of stamina. That doesn't look like perfect control. A perfected Gear 5 could fix both problems. Instead of Nika's personality influencing Luffy, Luffy's will finally dominates the transformation. And that idea fits perfectly with what Haki actually represents. Haki is willpower. So the final evolution of Nika could literally be Luffy imposing his own will on the Sun God. That could even become important thematically. The world is slowly beginning to see Luffy as Nika, the Giants. The Giants know Nika. The world government fears Nika. Bonnie believes in Nika. And the deeper we get into the final saga, the more Luffy's own identity is starting to disappear behind this ancient legend. To the Giants, he could become the Sun God they have been waiting for. To the world government, he is the return of the power they tried to erase for 800 years. And eventually, the rest of the world may stop looking at him as Monkey D. Luffy altogether. They may look at him and see Joy Boy. But that creates a problem, because Luffy has never wanted to become someone from the past. He doesn't care about being a god. He doesn't care about fulfilling some ancient prophecy. And And he definitely doesn't fight because history says that he is supposed to save the world. Luffy's dream has always been personal. He wants to become Pirate King because, to him, the Pirate King is the person who is more free than anyone else. And that is exactly why I think Luffy's final evolution shouldn't be Nika taking more control over him. It should be the complete opposite. Luffy taking control of Nika. Because Gear 5 may have awakened the Sun God, but Luffy still has to make that power completely his own. And this could be exactly why Oda brought Scopper Gaban into the story now. Think about the timing. Rayleigh appeared before Luffy entered the New World and taught him the foundations of Haki: observation, armament, conqueror's Haki. He gave Luffy the tools he needed to survive against the strongest pirates in the world. But Gaban could represent the final stage of that journey. Not another 2-year training arc. Not another completely new Haki ability that comes out of nowhere. Something much simpler. Mastery. Gaban sailed beside Roger. He watched a man with no devil fruit reach the top of the world through Haki alone. He knows what overwhelming willpower actually looks like at the highest possible level. So maybe when Gaban looks at Luffy using Gear 5, he doesn't see the finished product. He sees an emperor with one of the most ridiculous devil fruits in history, who is still depending too heavily on that devil fruit. And suddenly, his reaction to the white form makes even more sense. Maybe Gaban isn't impressed because he knows that becoming Nika is not enough. Roger didn't need Nika. Roger didn't need an awakening. His will alone shook the world. And if Luffy is going to surpass Roger, Joy Boy, and eventually face the person sitting at the very top of the world, he may need both: the freedom of Nika and the will of a conqueror. And that brings us directly to Imu. Because if Imu really becomes Luffy's final opponent, I don't think Oda can solve that fight by simply making Gear 5 even more ridiculous. Luffy doesn't need bigger cartoon punches. He doesn't need Gear 6. He needs complete control. Imagine the final transformation. The drums of liberation begin beating. Luffy enters Gear 5. His hair turns white. The clouds surround his body. For a moment, everything looks exactly like the Nika we already know. And then it changes. Black armament Haki begins spreading across his body. Conqueror's Haki starts exploding around him. Black lightning wraps around the white clouds. Parts of the transformation begin darkening until the pure white Nika form becomes something completely different. And then comes the biggest change of all. Luffy stops laughing. Not because he has become evil, not because Nika has some secret dark personality, but because for the first time since awakening this fruit, Luffy is completely in control. The devil fruit is no longer controlling the rhythm of the battle. Luffy is. And that is why I love this idea so much. Because the final form wouldn't just be stronger visually, it would complete Luffy's entire development as a fighter. His devil fruit gives him freedom. His Haki represents his will. Gear 5 gives him Nika. The black form would finally give us Monkey D. Luffy using Nika at its absolute maximum. And maybe that is what allows him to do something even Joy Boy couldn't. Because Joy Boy already had this fruit. Joy Boy already awakened Nika. And somehow, 800 years ago, he still failed. So Luffy cannot simply repeat what Joy Boy did. Something has to be different this time. And maybe that difference is exactly what Kaido told us. In the end, devil fruit powers aren't everything. Haki can transcend them. Maybe Joy Boy mastered Nika, but Luffy will take Nika one step further by combining that freedom with the level of Haki Roger once possessed. And suddenly, the idea of a black form doesn't feel like some random new transformation anymore. It becomes the natural final step. Gear 2 developed Luffy's body. Gear 3 expanded his power. Gear 4 combined his devil fruit with Haki. Gear 5 awakened the true nature of his devil fruit. So what comes after awakening? Mastering it. And if that is where Oda is going, then one tiny line from Gaban may have already told us what to look for. He didn't just call it Gear 5, he called it the white form. And normally, you don't need to specify that something is white, unless there is another color. Maybe somewhere between Elbaf and the final war, Luffy will create the form that doesn't belong to Nika. It belongs to him, the black form. And if you enjoy theories like this, where we take one tiny detail from Oda and follow it all the way into the final saga, make sure you subscribe, because that is exactly what we do on this channel. There are still way too many mysteries left around Nika, Joy Boy, Imu, and the true endgame of One Piece, and I have a lot more theories coming. But now, I want to know what you think. Is Gear 5 really Luffy's final form, or did Gaban just give us our first hint that Black Nika is coming?